The colony world of Haven's Reach looked peaceful from the outside. From orbit, its wide rivers sparkled like silver threads, and its green plains stretched endlessly under golden skies. But the beauty was only on the surface. For the human settlers living there, life was far from peace. They had come many years ago, hopeful pioneers from Earth, ready to build farms, towns, and a future. At first, it was everything they dreamed of, a land untouched, full of rich soil and gentle weather. Children laughed under alien trees, families built homes with stone and steel, and for a while, it seemed like humanity had planted a new flag of hope. Then the Clear Dominion arrived. The Clear were not monsters in appearance, but they carried the weight of cruelty in every step. Tall and sharp-featured, their smooth armor shimmered with cold colors. They believed themselves the rightful rulers of any world they set foot on. To them, humans were not settlers with dreams, but workers to be owned. The Clear soldiers marched into towns, took weapons, destroyed communication towers, and declared the humans property of the Dominion. The settlers tried to fight back. Farmers took up rifles, engineers turned machines into weapons, and small groups resisted in the forests. But the Clear had warships, plasma rifles, and 1,000 years of conquest behind them. The resistance lasted only weeks before it was crushed. Now, the colony lived under chains. Not always physical chains, but chains of fear. Humans worked the fields for Clear overseers. Their children grew up learning Clear commands instead of Earth songs. And above all, the Dominion kept the skies under watch, making sure no message escaped to the stars. Or so they thought. Among the enslaved was a young colonist named Mira Cade. She was only 19, with sharp eyes and a spirit, too, restless to bend. Her parents had once told her stories about Earth's bravery, how humans had always stood against the impossible. Those stories stayed alive in her heart, even as she worked long hours in the fields, carrying water under the hot alien sun. Mira had seen too many neighbors bow their heads and whisper, "No one will ever come. Earth has forgotten us." But Mira did not believe that. She refused to believe it. Somewhere out there, Earth was still alive. Somewhere out there, her message could still be heard. And so, late at night, when the Clear guards were tired and their machines slept in silence, Mira slipped away. She moved through dark alleys, past collapsed towers, until she reached the old comm station on the edge of town. The building had been burned long ago, its windows shattered, its antennas broken. The Dominion had declared it useless, but Mira had a secret. She had been repairing it in small, hidden steps for months. Her hands trembled as she touched the cracked console. She had scavenged wires from abandoned vehicles, small power cells from broken drones, even old Earth circuit boards, left in storage crates. Piece by piece, she had rebuilt enough of the system to send a signal. Not a strong one, not far, not clear, but maybe, just maybe, enough. She whispered as she powered it on, "Please work. Please, just once." The lights flickered weakly. The old screen glowed with faint life. Mira typed quickly, sending out a pulse through the ruins of the dish. She knew it might not reach Earth. It might not even leave the system, but she could not stop trying. Her voice shook as she recorded the message. "This is Haven's Reach. We are human. We are enslaved by the Clear Dominion. If anyone hears this, if anyone is listening, we need you. Please, do not forget us. We are still here." She sent the message, heart pounding, then shut the system down. The room fell silent again. Mira stayed there for a long time, tears running down her face. Not because she believed Earth would answer, but because she had to hope. Hope was the only weapon left. What she did not know was that across the cold void of space, far beyond the Dominion's reach, a small listening post orbiting Mars caught her signal. The message was broken, scrambled by distance and interference. But one line remained clear. "We are enslaved. We need you." The Mars station was manned by veterans of Earth's past wars, old soldiers who had once fought for their planet, now forgotten by governments who no longer needed them. They spent their days watching empty skies, drinking recycled water, and telling stories of battles long past. When Mira's message appeared on the screen, they fell silent. The words struck them like fire in the chest. One of the veterans, Commander Rhett Alvar, leaned forward, his weathered face tightening. "Play it again," he ordered. The signal played again, weak and trembling, but real. A human voice crying out from across the stars. The room filled with silence after it ended. Some of the younger watch officers looked uncertain. "Sir, it could be a trap. The Dominion might be baiting us." Rhett shook his head. His eyes had seen too many wars to mistake the sound of truth. That voice was not a trap. That was desperation. That was one of ours. The veterans exchanged glances. They knew Earth's governments would never risk war with the Dominion. Official leaders would turn away, call it impossible, and let the colony rot. But these soldiers were not politicians. They were warriors who had spent their lives protecting their people. And though they were older now, their hearts had not grown cold. One by one, they made a choice. "If Earth won't go," Rhett said quietly, "then we will." Back on Haven's Reach, Mira went about her days as if nothing had happened. The Dominion continued its iron grip. Every week, new punishments were given to those who resisted. Every month, more colonists gave up hope. One evening, Mira sat with her younger brother, Talon, who was only 12. He asked her in a small voice, "Do you think Earth remembers us?" Mira smiled softly, hiding her own doubt. "Of course they do. We just have to be strong until they come." Talon looked at her with wide eyes. "But what if they never come?" Mira took his hand. Her heart ached, but her voice stayed steady. "Then we will be strong anyway, because that's what humans do." She gazed up at the night sky, where the stars burned quietly above. She did not know that far beyond her sight, Earth's warriors were already gathering. Ships were being armed, armor polished, and old flags unfolded. The Dominion thought no, one would come. The colonists believed they were forgotten, but in the silence of space, a promise was forming. And soon, when the sky over Haven's Reach cracked with fire, Mira and her people would learn that Earth had not abandoned them. On Earth, the governments debated in silence. When the broken signal from Haven's Reach was finally confirmed by scientists, leaders in polished suits sat in long, round halls. They whispered about politics, trade, and risk. Some spoke about the danger of confronting the Clier Dominion, an empire known for crushing entire species. Others said Earth should protect itself first, not waste resources on a faraway colony that had been lost for years. In the end, the official answer was nothing. Reports were filed away, meetings were adjourned, no armies were sent. No fleets were launched, but humanity is not only its governments. Across Earth, and even on scattered outposts around Mars and the Belt, people began to hear rumors. Veterans who had served in wars against pirates, rebels, and raiders talked quietly, in mess halls. Retired pilots sitting in lonely hangars remembered what it was like to feel the fire of duty. Mechanics, working in hidden yards, whispered as they welded metal and dreamed of building something that could fly again. At the center of it all stood Commander Rhett Alvar, the man who had first heard Mira's message on the Mars station. Rhett was not young anymore. His beard was streaked with silver, and his eyes carried the weight of battles that most had forgotten. But his voice still carried strength, and when he spoke, people listened. He gathered those who still believed in action. Old soldiers, skilled engineers, young recruits hungry to prove that Earth was not a coward. They met in hidden places, Abandoned military bunkers, old shipyards, quiet corners of forgotten stations. Rhett stood before them one evening, his voice echoing in a rusted hangar on the dark side of the moon. "You all know what the governments have decided," he said. "They will do nothing. They are afraid of the Dominion. They have weighed the cost of lives against politics, and they have chosen silence." A murmur of anger rippled through the crowd. Some clenched their fists, others shook their heads. Rhett's voice grew stronger. "But we are not bound by their fear. We are soldiers. We are warriors. We have not forgotten what it means to fight for our own. Those people out there, they are human. They are family, and family is not left behind." The hangar filled with a roar of voices, cheers rising like thunder. In that moment, a decision was made. The plan was simple, but dangerous. They could not hope to build a grand fleet like the Dominions. Earth was still behind in technology, but Earth had its own strengths: creativity, stubbornness, and the ability to turn old scraps into something deadly. So, they searched. In old shipyards, they found retired cargo freighters that had once hauled ore between the Belt and Mars. In forgotten bases, they uncovered obsolete warships, stripped of weapons, but still solid at the core. Engineers scavenged every engine, every missile rack, every railgun barrel that could be made to work again. Workshops buzzed with energy. Sparks flew as welding torches cut through steel. Mechanics cursed and laughed as they rebuilt engines older than themselves. Pilots ran drills in simulators that barely functioned, practicing maneuvers that might keep them alive in combat. It was not pretty. The ships were rusty, patched together, and untested. But in the eyes of those who worked on them, they became something more. They were not just machines. They were symbols. Symbols of Earth's refusal to give up. One of the volunteers was Captain Leora Venn, a former fighter pilot who had once flown defense patrols around Earth's orbit. She had retired after an injury left her with scars across her side. But when she heard Mira's voice in the replayed message, something inside her reignited. "I thought I was done," she admitted to Rhett as they stood on the deck of a half-rebuilt carrier. But hearing that girl's voice, "I couldn't sit and do nothing. If she can hope from across the stars, then so can I." Rhett nodded. "You're exactly who we need. Not because of the scars, but because you know what it means to fight when the odds say you shouldn't." Leora smiled faintly. "Then I'll fly again." Days turned into weeks. The group grew larger. Smugglers joined, bringing hidden stockpiles of ammunition. Scientists donated experimental shields and drones that governments had refused to test. Even miners from the Belt came, carrying raw ore and metals to forge armor plates. Soon, the ragtag fleet had a name whispered among them: the Fallen Sky Force. The name came from a promise that one day they would fall from the heavens like storms, striking the Dominion where it least expected. But not all was unity. Doubt lived among them, too. One night, in a meeting room aboard their largest vessel, a freighter refitted into a command ship, young recruits sat with veterans around a long table. The air smelled of oil and metal dust. A recruit named Jonas, only 20, asked the question many feared. "What if we fail? The Dominion has thousands of ships. We have this." He gestured to the hologram of their patched fleet, a dozen ships glowing in shaky blue light. Silence fell. The veterans looked at one another. Some had the same doubt hidden in their hearts. Rhett leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Yes, they are stronger. Yes, they outnumber us. But battles are not only won by numbers. Battles are won by will, by strategy, by the belief that your cause is greater than your fear. The Dominion fights for power. We fight for people. That is the difference. And that is why we will not fail." Jonas lowered his gaze, ashamed but comforted. The room erupted in agreement, voices rising once more. Training began. The hangars echoed with the sound of boots as soldiers drilled in old armor. They learned to fight in tight squads, to move through urban ruins like shadows. Pilots tested, their ships in simulations, weaving between imaginary enemy fire. Mechanics shouted over the roar of engines as they pushed ships to their limits. There were mistakes, accidents, even small explosions when old systems failed. But no one gave up. They laughed at their failures, learned from every error, and came back stronger each day. One evening, as the sun set over Earth's oceans, the fleet gathered in orbit for the first time. From a distance, they did not look impressive. Old freighters, with fresh paint, battered warships humming with renewed power. But to those who watched from the decks, they looked like hope. Rhett stood on the bridge of the command ship, gazing at the fleet spread across the stars. He spoke softly, almost to himself. They thought no one would come. They thought humanity was too weak, too divided. But they forgot who we are. Beside him, Captain Leora smiled. Then let's remind them. Meanwhile, far away on Haven's Reach, Mira Cade had no idea what was coming. She still worked under the hot sun. Still, whispered to her brother that Earth would not forget them. Some days even she doubted. The Clear were cruel, their whips of power cracking down on any who resisted. But at night, she still looked up at the stars, praying someone would answer. And out there, across the darkness, Earth's warriors were preparing. Their ships were almost ready. Their hearts burned with purpose. The Dominion's arrogance had blinded them. They believed no one would come. But soon, the skies over Haven's Reach would blaze with fire, and humanity's forgotten. Warriors would fall from above, and when they did, the galaxy would remember the truth. Earth does not abandon its own. The sun rose over Haven's Reach with a golden glow, but its warmth brought no comfort to the enslaved colonists. In the central square of the capital city, hundreds of humans were gathered, their faces pale with fear. The Clear Dominion had declared, this day, a lesson. To them, it was not enough to work humans in the fields and mines. They wanted to crush their spirit, to show them that rebellion was hopeless. And so, a stage had been built in the square, tall and cruel, where several human leaders were forced to stand in chains. Mira Cade was among the crowd, her brother Talon clutching her hand tightly. She whispered to him to stay calm, but her own heart pounded. She could not bear the thought of seeing her friends executed before her eyes. High above, the Clear banners fluttered in the wind, their symbols gleaming. Soldiers in polished armor marched with heavy rifles, their alien voices cold as they barked orders. The Clear governor of the colony, Veyron Thol, stood tall at the front of the stage. His voice carried over the loudspeakers, smooth and sharp like a knife. Humans of Haven's Reach, he declared, today you will learn. Resistance is weakness. Hope is foolishness. Earth will not come for you. No one will come for you. You belong to the Dominion. The crowd stayed silent, though many clenched their fists in anger. Mira bit her lip until it bled. She wanted to scream, to fight, but what could one young girl do against plasma rifles and warships? Veyron raised, a hand signaling the guards to prepare the prisoners. Watch, he said with a cruel smile, and remember your place. But then, the sky tore open. At first, it was only a sound, a distant rumble, like thunder rolling across the horizon. Heads turned upward, confused. The Clear soldiers glanced at one another, uncertain. Then streaks of fire appeared, cutting through the clouds like falling stars. Drop pods. Mira gasped as she saw them. Dozens of burning trails blazing across the heavens, growing larger with every heartbeat. The ground shook as the first pod slammed into the edge of the square. Dust exploded upward. A second pod crashed nearby, its shell glowing red from re-entry. The crowd cried out, panicked, unsure whether to run or stay. The Clear governor shouted, Orders. Defensive formation! Destroy them before they breach! But it was too late. With a hiss of steam, the first pod opened. Out stepped a human, clad in heavy armor, painted with Earth's old symbols, visor glowing faintly. He carried a railgun rifle, its barrel humming with deadly energy. Behind him, more pods burst open, releasing squads of human warriors. The crowd went silent in shock. For years, they had been told Earth would never come. For years, they had believed themselves forgotten. And now, from the sky, their people had arrived. The first warrior raised his voice through an external speaker. It was deep, steady, unyielding. Humans of Haven's Reach, you are not alone! The square erupted in chaos. Clear soldiers opened fire, plasma bolts flashing through the air. But the warriors from Earth moved with precision. They used cover, their rifles answering with sharp bursts that tore through clear armor. Explosions thundered as grenades rolled under alien vehicles, flipping them in fire. The colonists could hardly believe their eyes. These warriors fought with a kind of fury. The Clear had never expected. They were outnumbered, but every move was calculated, every strike exact. Where the Clear relied on fear, the humans relied on strategy. Mira grabbed Talon's arm. Do you see? Do you see, Talon? Earth came. Talon's eyes were wide, tears running down his cheeks. They came for us. On the stage, Governor Veyron's confident smile vanished. He shouted at his guards to hold the line, but panic was already spreading among them. The Dominion soldiers had fought countless enemies, but never like this. The Earth warriors advanced with discipline, covering each other's movements, striking with weapons the Clear had never seen. Railgun fire cracked like thunder, piercing through shields. Explosive drones zipped through the air, slamming into enemy armor. And when the Clear tried to regroup, humans broke their formation with ruthless efficiency. For the first time, the colonists saw their oppressors falter. In the chaos! Mira pushed through the crowd, dragging her brother with her. She reached the stage where the chained leaders stood. One of the Earth warriors, his armor marked with scratches and battle scars, moved to free them. Get them out, he commanded in a steady voice. His visor hid his eyes, but Mira could feel the fire in his tone. Who are you? She asked, her voice trembling. The warrior glanced at her. We're from Earth. We came because you called. Mira's heart nearly broke. Her secret message, the one she thought would vanish into the void, had reached someone. And they had come. The battle spread beyond the square. In the skies above, the rest of the ragtag fleet descended. Old freighters turned into gunships, fired missiles into Clear garrisons. Fighters swooped low, strafing enemy convoys. Colonists, inspired by the sudden arrival of rescuers, picked up tools, rocks, and even stolen rifles, rushing to fight alongside. Their liberators. Street by street, the humans pushed back. In one alley, miners swung heavy hammers at Clear soldiers. In another, children carried water to wounded fighters. Everywhere, the fire of rebellion spread like lightning. The Clear had spent years convincing the colonists they were weak. But now, with Earth's warriors at their side, they remembered the truth. They were strong. On the command ship in orbit, Commander Rhett Alvar watched the battle unfold through tactical screens. His fleet shook as enemy ships scrambled to respond, but his voice stayed calm. Hold formation. Cover the ground teams. Do not let the Dominion's reinforcements cut them off. Beside him, Captain Leora Venn piloted a fighter wing, weaving through enemy fire with practiced grace. Her voice crackled through comms. They never expected us to come. Let's show them what Earth can do. Back in the city, Mira helped lead freed prisoners into hiding. Talon ran beside her, carrying water for the warriors. Everywhere they went, people shouted with hope. Earth has come! We are not alone! Fight for Haven's Reach! The Clear governor tried one last desperate command. He called in his elite guards, tall and heavily armed, their armor glowing with energy shields. They marched into the square, determined to crush the rebellion. But the Earth warriors met them head-on. The clash shook the ground, plasma against, steel, shields against railguns. Sparks flew as blades struck armor. For a moment, the square seemed like the heart of a storm. Then the Earth warriors broke their line. With a surge of coordinated strikes, they overwhelmed the elite guards. The colonists roared in triumph. Governor Veyron stood frozen, his arrogance shattered. He looked around at his soldiers retreating, his banners burning, his control crumbling. For the first time, he knew fear. As night fell, the city glowed not with Dominion torches, but with fires of freedom. The Earth warriors stood guard while colonists cheered, sang, and embraced one another. For the first time in years, they believed in tomorrow. Mira sat beside her brother, watching the warriors clean their weapons and prepare for the next fight. She whispered to him, "They thought no one would come, but they were wrong." And above, the sky shimmered with the glow of Earth's fleet. They were not many, they were not perfect, but they had come. And with them came something more powerful than any weapon, hope. The night after Earth's warriors fell from the sky, the colony of Haven's Reach did not sleep. Fires still smoldered in the streets where battles had raged. The bodies of broken machines lay scattered. Clier banners were torn down, and human. Voices filled the air with a sound not heard in years, laughter and songs of hope. But the warriors knew the fight was not over. The clear Dominion did not surrender easily. They were regrouping, preparing to strike back at dawn. Commander Rhett Alvar stood on the balcony of a captured garrison overlooking the city. The lights of resistance fires flickered in the distance. He had fought in many battles before, but this one was different. This was not about territory, not about politics. This was about saving people who had been abandoned. Captain Leora Venn joined him, removing her helmet. Her face was streaked with soot, her hair damp with sweat. "They'll hit us hard tomorrow," she said quietly. Rhett nodded. "Yes, the Dominion cannot allow this rebellion to spread. If they lose Haven's Reach, the galaxy will see that. They are not invincible." Leora glanced down at the streets, where colonists carried supplies, built barricades, and armed themselves with captured weapons. "But the people are ready. Did you see their faces tonight? They finally believe they can win." Rhett's weathered eyes softened. "That belief is stronger than any weapon." At dawn, the Clier struck. The city shook as Dominion warships descended, their shadows covering the rooftops. Dropships poured soldiers into the streets. Heavy walkers with armored legs stomped forward, plasma cannons glowing. But the humans were ready. The warriors from Earth had spent the night planning with the colonists. They turned narrow alleys into traps, set charges under bridges, and placed snipers in ruined towers. Farmers who once carried tools now carried rifles. Miners who once swung hammers now used them against armored soldiers. Children carried messages. Between barricades, their small feet swift and unnoticed. The battle began with a roar. Plasma fire streaked across the sky, striking barricades. Explosions shook the ground as the first walkers advanced, but hidden charges detonated beneath them, flipping the massive machines onto their sides. From rooftops, human snipers fired precise shots, dropping Clier officers before they could give orders. In the streets, Earth's warriors led squads of colonists with steady voices. "Hold the line! Push forward! They bleed like we do! Don't be afraid!" Miracade ran through the chaos with her brother Talon at her side, carrying water to fighters and shouting warnings when enemy patrols approached. Her heart pounded, but she felt no fear now. The warriors had given her courage, and she would not waste it. The Dominion underestimated them. They expected the colonists to hide while Earth's soldiers fought. Instead, they found themselves facing an entire city united. Every street became a battlefield. Every home became a stronghold. In one square, miners fought side by side with Earth's veterans, using plasma rifles taken from fallen Clire. In another, engineers used old machines to block streets, forcing enemy troops into narrow alleys where they were ambushed. The Dominion fought fiercely, but their arrogance blinded them. They were used to easy victories to enemies who bowed quickly. They did not understand what it meant to face humans who fought for each other. High above the city, the skies were filled with fire. The ragtag Earth fleet battled Dominion warships, weaving between beams of plasma. Old freighters launched missiles. Fighters darted through enemy formations, and battered carriers shielded the ground below. Captain Leora led her squadron through the chaos, her voice calm over the comms. "Stay close, stay sharp. Hit their engines, not their armor." Her fighters struck with precision, crippling enemy ships and forcing them to retreat. Every victory above sent hope surging through the streets below. On the ground, Rhett fought alongside his soldiers. His rifle cracked with sharp bursts, each shot hitting its mark. But more than his weapon, it was his voice that carried strength. He moved through the lines, shouting encouragement, steadying hands, reminding everyone why they fought. At one barricade, a group of colonists nearly broke under heavy fire. Rhett stood tall in the open, drawing enemy shots while his squad flanked. The attackers. "Stand your ground," he roared. "You are not slaves. You are free people of Earth." The colonists rallied, their fear replaced with fire. Together, they pushed the enemy back. The battle raged for hours. Streets filled with smoke and fire. Buildings crumbled, and the cries of war echoed across the city. But slowly, the tide began to turn. The clear lines weakened. Their soldiers, once so confident, began to falter under the relentless resistance. Their walkers lay in smoking ruins. Their dropships were shot down before they could land. And everywhere they looked, they saw humans standing unbroken. Governor Veyran watched from his fortress tower, fury burning in his eyes. This was not how it was supposed to be. The humans were supposed to kneel, not rise. His empire was supposed to inspire fear, not crumble before a handful of warriors and farmers with stolen rifles. He slammed his fist against the control panel. "Send everything we have. Burn the city if you must, but do not let them win." The final battle came at the fortress itself. The Earth warriors and colonists surrounded it, their banners rising beside the broken ones of the Dominion. The fortress gates loomed high, reinforced with alien steel, guarded by the last of the governor's elite soldiers. Rhett stood at the front, his armor scarred, his rifle low, but ready. Mira and Talon stood among the colonists behind him, eyes wide with determination. "This is the heart of their power," Rhett said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Break it, and they will fall. Today we fight not just for Haven's reach, but for every world the Dominion thinks it owns. Today, we show them that humanity does not bow." The crowd roared in response. The assault began. Explosives tore at the gates, shaking the fortress walls. Warriors stormed forward, exchanging fire with the defenders. The battle was fierce, but the momentum was unstoppable. Humans climbed the walls, broke through doors, and fought room by room. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and sparks. The fortress halls echoed with the clash of weapons. At the center chamber, Rhett and his squad confronted the governors. Guards. The fight was brutal, each side unwilling to yield. But the Earth warriors fought with something greater than strength. They fought with purpose, and one by one, the guards fell. At last, they reached the command room. Governor Veyran stood. There, his armor gleaming, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can defeat the Dominion? You think Earth matters? You are nothing compared to us." Rhett leveled his rifle, his voice steady. "We are not nothing. We are human, and we do not leave our own behind." The final clash shook the deep room. Sparks flew, weapons clashed, and the governor's arrogance was shattered. His fall marked the end of Dominion power on Haven's reach. When the battle ended, The city was silent for a moment. Smoke drifted through the air. The ground was scarred, and the people stood in awe. Then, slowly, cheers began to rise. First, a few voices, then hundreds, then thousands. The Dominion was broken. The colonists were free. Mira held her brother close, tears streaming down her face. "We're free, Talon. We're finally free." Talon smiled through his tears. "They came for us just like you said." The warriors stood among the people, weary but unbroken. They had not come for glory or conquest. They had come for family, for humanity. And now, with the battle won, they knew the war was not just about one colony. The galaxy had seen what humans could do. The Dominion's image of invincibility was shattered. The smoke of battle still lingered over Haven's Reach. The streets were broken, walls scarred, and the air thick with the scent of fire and metal. Yet in the ruins of what had once been a prison city, something new was rising. Freedom. The white, Clyre Dominion's banners were gone, torn down by the hands of the very people they had enslaved. In their place, the colonists raised their own makeshift flags, cloth stitched with the old colors of Earth. It was not perfect, but it was theirs. Commander Rhett Alvar walked slowly through the streets with his helmet tucked under one arm. His armor was battered, his body aching, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Everywhere he looked, people were cheering, embracing, weeping. Some knelt at his feet, thanking him. But Rhett shook his head each time. "Don't thank me," he told them. "Thank yourselves. You were the ones who stood. You were the ones who fought. We only reminded you of what you already were." The people listened, but to them the warriors were heroes, saviors sent from the skies. Children ran after them, imitating their battle cries. Men and women lifted them on shoulders, singing songs of victory. For years they had lived in silence, and now their voices filled the air like thunder. In the city square, the same place, where executions had been planned only days ago, the colonists gathered. Where fear had once ruled, joy now blossomed. The leaders who had been freed from chains stood tall again, speaking to their people with renewed strength. Mira Cade stood at the front of the crowd, her brother Talon at her side. She could hardly believe it was real. Just days ago, she had sent a desperate message into the void, believing no one would hear. And now Earth's warriors stood here, flesh and blood, proving her hope had not been wasted. She whispered to Talon, "Do you see them? They came because of us, because we refused to give up." Talon's young face shone with pride. "I want to be like them when I grow up. Strong. Brave." Mira smiled and hugged him close. "You already are." But victory did not erase the danger. The Clear Dominion was not destroyed, only wounded. Their governor was dead, their garrison broken, but their empire stretched across countless worlds. They would return. Everyone knew it. That night, the warriors gathered in a quiet hall away from the celebrations. The walls flickered with the glow of damaged lights, and the table was scattered with maps, weapons, and ration packs. Rhett looked around at his people, Captain Leora Venn, scarred but unbroken. Jonas, the young recruit who had once doubted, but now fought with fire. Engineers and pilots whose eyes carried both exhaustion and determination. "We did what we came to do," Rhett began. His voice was low but steady. "We freed Haven's Reach, but our mission is not finished." Leora leaned forward, her hands on the table. "The Dominion will not let this go. They'll return with fleets, with armies, and when they do, this colony will be their first target." The room was silent for a moment. Everyone knew she was right. Jonas broke the silence. "Then we stay. We fight with them. Haven's Reach is not just theirs. It's ours now, too." Others nodded in agreement. The warriors had not come for conquest, but now that they had seen the colony's struggle, they could not abandon it. Rhett studied them all, then gave a small, approving smile. So be it. We will stay. We will fight. And when the Dominion comes, they will find more than farmers and miners. They will find warriors. The following days were filled with rebuilding. The warriors worked alongside the colonists, teaching them how to fortify streets, repair weapons, and train in squads. Children watched with wide eyes as veterans showed them drills. Farmers learned to handle rifles with the same care they once gave to plows. Mira threw herself into the work. She helped repair comm systems, this time not in secret but in full view, her hands steady and skilled. She had once sent a message of desperation. Now she worked to send messages of strength. One afternoon, Rhett found her at the console, soldering wires with careful precision. "You have a gift," he said. Mira looked up startled, then smiled shyly. I just wanted someone to hear us." And they did. Rhett placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice soft but firm. "You reminded us who we are. Sometimes one voice is all it takes to wake the world. Never forget that." Her eyes glistened with pride. Meanwhile, Captain Leora worked with the new defense pilots. The colonists had no real fleet, only cargo ships and mining vessels, but under her command, they were transformed. She taught them to maneuver, to use the terrain of space to their advantage, to fight with cunning rather than brute force. "These ships aren't war machines," one young pilot protested during a training drill. Leora's scarred face hardened, but her voice carried conviction. "Neither am I. But I fight anyway, and so will you. It is not the machine that wins battles. It is the one who believes." Her words spread quickly, whispered like scripture among the colonists. One evening, the colonists held a feast. It was small with little food, but it was filled with joy. Fires burned bright, music echoed through the streets, and laughter replaced fear. The warriors sat among the people, sharing stories of Earth, stories of battles fought long ago. Mira stood to speak, her voice trembling but strong. "For so long we thought Earth had forgotten us. For so long we believed we were alone. But then you came. You showed us that hope is never wasted, that family is never abandoned. You showed us what it means to be human." The crowd roared with applause, their voices rising together like a single wave. But not all watched with joy. In the shadows of space, far beyond Haven's reach, Dominion ships listened, recorded, and carried news back to their empire. Already, plans were forming. Already, fleets were stirring. The Dominion had been embarrassed, and they would not forgive. Days turned to weeks, and the colony grew stronger. Where once there had been fear, now there was training. Where once there had been silence, now there were songs. The people of Haven's Reach had been broken, but Earth's warriors had taught them how to stand again. One night, as Rhett walked through the quiet streets, Mira approached him. She looked up at him with determined eyes. "Will they come back?" she asked. "Yes," Rhett answered honestly. "They will come back." "Will we survive?" Rhett looked out at the horizon, where the first stars of evening shone. Then he turned back to her, his face calm but resolute. "We will. Because now you know the truth. You are not weak. You are not forgotten. And when humanity fights together, we cannot be broken." Mira nodded, her heart steady. The galaxy soon learned. What happened on Haven's Reach? Traders carried the story. Smugglers whispered it in dark cantinas. Other enslaved worlds heard the tale of humans who rose against the Dominion, of Earth warriors who fell from the sky to save their own. The message was clear. Earth does not abandon its people. It was a promise that echoed across the stars. In the years to come, Haven's Reach would not just survive, it would become a beacon. Other worlds would look to it and see hope. Other enslaved voices would whisper Mira's words. We are still here. And when they did, perhaps they too would see fire fall from the sky, carrying warriors who refused to let humanity fade. For now, as the stars glittered above, Mira stood with her brother on the city walls. They looked up at the night sky where the ragtag fleet floated in orbit, guarding them. Talon leaned against her and whispered, "They thought no one would come." Mira smiled, her eyes shining with tears. But Earth came, and Earth will always come. And with that, the promise of humanity blazed across the heavens, unyielding, unstoppable, a light no empire could ever extinguish.